No, I'm having problems again. I'm just going to restart this real quick. Apologize.
Well, Chris is getting that up and running. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We're looking forward to sharing the topic of how to use influence to align your culture, using messaging to drive the kind of activities that help move your business forward. Chris is going to start with a presentation on some concepts and ideas around this topic, and then we're going to jump into a panel discussion afterwards.
All right, so greatly appreciate everybody giving us a chance to talk to you all today at this Trailblazer Series. And we're particularly excited to be able to talk about this sort of level of influence and messaging and how these pieces come together. But it's great also to have the panel that we have today. We have two amazing, visionary, inspiring leaders who are truly influential in their organizations. And so we're going to be able to talk quite a bit with them about many of the principles that we're going to bring up here today. So please ask any questions that you have through chat, and hopefully any questions through the presentation we'll be able to answer during the panel discussion. If not, we can get to those directly after, if that's all right. Damn. Hey, I am really sorry here. This thing has been working just perfectly until right now.
Chris, I have it as well. So if you need me to share, I could always share, and you could just guide me through it.
Okay, let me just try it one more time. And we had this thing all working perfectly a half hour ago. My hope is we can just get going here. Okay, so sorry about that. So we're going to talk about the power of influence, and this is really tied to this idea of how you align organizations and vision through message. And we're going to talk quite a bit about influence. We're also going to talk about message, and we'll begin at that point. We all know that words are powerful. The pen is definitely mightier than the sword. And as leaders, we hope that we can find the words that will move people, inspire them, rally them around an idea. But before we get too far into that, I want to share a quote from Shakespeare that everybody's very familiar with that really sums up the power, the real power of words. And it is this from Macbeth. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. We all think words are powerful. We think the right words can change the world, rile up people, create movements. But in truth, no matter how loud you yell, no matter how strongly you pound your fist on the table, no matter how well written your talking points are, a message without vision, without context, amounts to absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, in this statement here, most leaders are the idiots. They're out there talking about things, they're making big statements and proclamations, talking about our vision and what we're going to do as a company, but they're actually saying absolutely nothing to the people who are on the other side of that conversation. Now, a big chunk of this webinar is going to be about messaging, but we're going to first start on a bit of a detour on what really drives influence. Okay, so what is real influence? So when we think about influence, we think about those people, the influential people of the world. We look at those really powerful speeches, how they got crowds cheering and following. And you look at those speeches and say the influence must be in what they say. And the truth is, it is not in what they say. But then you might say, go to somebody like Barack Obama, who was a somewhat obscure senator from Illinois, who went from obscurity to the entire future of the Democratic Party in one speech, the speech at the Democratic National Convention. He said certain words, everybody got behind it. He went from nothing to something to president just with a speech. So it must be the speech. You can look at somebody like Steve Jobs. I mean, everybody hangs on his every word. So are those words the magic? What most people fail to realize is that those speeches and all those powerful words serve to motivate people who already came to the party with this common set of beliefs. They didn't create beliefs. The people on the other side, the people in those crowds, come to those events, come to those conversations with a belief already. They're not creating them, they're pulling them out of people. So influential people don't really possess this special magic over words. They know how to make a connection with the existing beliefs and passions of big groups of people. That is the magic. It's understanding how to make that connection. It's not the words, it's what the words mean to the people on the other side. This is a two-way conversation. And a lot of times, again, there's a sense that influence is about how I exert my influence over another person or over a group of people. That is not how you influence. Now, if you want to understand the power of influence, speaking to people who already have a point of view or already have a belief, all you have to do is look at the news media. Whether or not the coronavirus was the worst thing in the universe or it was completely nothing but a bad cold, all came down to how the media took those common beliefs of people. If you're on the Fox side, those people didn't want this virus to be bad, and so they fed them a lot of that. On the other side, you had people who wanted to believe the science and felt like that was something we couldn't ignore, and it kind of proved our point of view that the world is falling apart. Well, that exactly was how these people were spoken to. Those beliefs already existed. It's how you pulled it together. If you look at, why does this keep doing this? I don't understand. I've never had this happen before. We've done tons of these. So Sarah, you said you have the presentation. I don't want to continue to, if it's going to keep screwing up.
So let me pull it up on mine, and then hopefully, for whatever reason, it works on mine. So give me 1 second.
Actually, you know what, Sarah, I made some changes to it that are actually going to be somewhat substantial now that I'm thinking of it. So hold off. Let me just see if I can put this in a different mode so that it's not playing this full screen. That might help in some way, shape, or form. Maybe I'll just put it down here. Okay. All right, so to continue that, we're talking about social media is a place where this idea of common current beliefs are so present. And then people fall into that and they believe all kinds of things. Conspiracy theories are exactly examples of things that don't actually come out of thin air. They're sometimes wild manifestations of existing beliefs. You can make up a really crazy story of some sort and people believe it because it's tied to something that they already know and believe. And this is true of celebrities as well and famous people. They often exploit the other side. It's not just common beliefs, but common desires. Desires that people have to be famous or popular, to live a different or more exciting life. When you're speaking to the choir, influence is a whole lot easier to do. So influential people know how to tap in and elevate what we have in common based on a couple key things. These are what you need to look for if you want to influence people. Their common beliefs, their common needs, their common desires or aspirations, the common fears or anxieties they may have. And a really strong one is common enemies. We see a lot of this in politics where you're looking at common enemies, people flock to that because it's something that everybody has to some degree. And they believe certain things around it. They want to believe things around it. So they're easily influenced from that regard. But influence in business is a whole different animal because here you have kind of a ragtag group of people. You have a bunch of people that have been assembled sometimes over decades that have all come to an organization with different roles, different interests, different passions. You've got salespeople who are looking at the marketing people like they don't know what they're doing. You've got managers who think their employees aren't working hard enough, but then you have the employees who say the managers aren't listening. You've got politics and backstabbing. Business is a dysfunctional family of so many parts and pieces. Right? So how as a leader do you bring all of those people together around something? So the thing is, what do most business leaders do? What do they try to do to really bring people together? Well, of course they talk and they talk and they talk about their vision, they talk about their point of view, they talk about what they want their people to believe, they talk about how they want their people to behave and how they want them to think. And you shouldn't be surprised that when you get up in front of a big group of people and you're pontificating on what it is that you believe and what you want and the things that you see that is in their best interest, that this stuff is just bouncing off of them. None of this lands. These are one-sided conversations. If you're a person sitting in the audience on the other side of the room and a leader is telling you everything that they want to see in their vision of how they want the world to look, all you're thinking is, what does this have to do with me? Everything you say benefits you, benefits the company, benefits stockholders, doesn't impact me. I don't understand the correlation between that, which means you're not bringing the pieces together. So to be influenced, people have to bring something of themselves to the conversation. They have to see meaning in it for themselves. They have to see their own passion reflected in some way, shape, or form. You're going to hear a lot about this when we talk to Elizabeth and Jamie about capturing the things that currently exist. But I'm gonna show an example here. I'm a big movie fan, and when we do these presentations, I often bring lots of movie quotes to it. And this is a great example of Winston Churchill from the movie Darkest Hour, about how he did the thing that leaders need to do. He asked the questions, he understood the needs and the mindsets and the beliefs, and he started to push people towards something that they already wanted to see. So I'm going to go ahead and play this real quick.
You, the British people, what is your mood? Is it confident? Confident? How confident?
Very. Some people say it's a lost cause.
Lost causes are the only ones worth fighting for.
Too right.
Yes. Now let me ask you this: if the worst came to pass, and the enemy were to appear on those streets above, what would you do?
Fight.
Fight the fascists.
Fight them with anything we can lay our hands on.
Broom handles if we must, street by street.
They'll never take Piccadilly.
I never take Piccadilly indeed. And what if I put it to you all that we might, if we ask nicely, get very favourable terms from Mr. Hitler if we enter into a peace deal with him right now? What would you say to that?
Never.
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 All right. And the point of that being that what he did was he asked the questions, he understood the mood and the beliefs of the people. And through his words, he was able to motivate people to act, to respond, to be a part of the solution in this case. And there's a really critical component you have to understand here. Influence does not come from the act of leading. It comes from the ability of a leader to align people. That is the biggest job. Aligning people is actually not usually in the leadership handbook. It's not the skill that people are taught, but it is the most critical point of being a great leader, and particularly being an influential leader. The ability to align people. So no matter how good you are, if you've got completely divided interests, you can't align people who are completely opposite sides of the aisle. You see this every day in Congress, for example. We have lots of examples of politics in this. You know, when one side of the aisle says something, everybody cheers, the other side sits and doesn't move an inch. And they have all these impassioned speeches, and nobody is listening to this. Nobody is being moved by those speeches because they're so firmly entrenched in where they are. So the words don't mean anything. It's whether or not you can make that connection. Now, in politics, these people, their job is to be contrarians to the other side, to represent other people. That's not what you face in the business world in any way. It's a very different mindset there, because you can find the common interest there. And Jesus. One more time. Okay, so your toughest job as a leader in that case is to identify the things that people believe in, to find those common threads. And again, this is the part of the job that is rarely taught, to be able to discover and pull things out of people that work with you and work for you, to find the things that matter to both you as well as the rest of the people in your organization. So influence and message really is a reflection. It's a reflection of a company, of its culture, of the people you hire, of the company you are, the services you provide, the relationships you build, of the vision that you share. So always keep in mind that the idea of influence is tied to that reflection of the organization and the people, and the messaging comes from that. So it's important to know that every group of people, and it doesn't matter how diverse they all have commonalities. Human beings always flock together around something, but you have to be able to find it, because a lot of people go out of their way to try to find their differences. Your job as a leader is to be able to find their commonalities, and they do absolutely do exist. And every company, I don't care if you've got people who are fighting tooth and nail for their point of view on things, if you dig under the surface, you will find common ground. When you find that common ground, you can begin the process of influence. Didn't work that time either. I've just got a couple more things here I got to get to. Okay, common ground. So then, how do great leaders build influence? If you can't always pick all the right people, you have to build the right mindset. It's a very different point of view there. You can't pick your people, so you have to build a mindset among all the people who are in there. And we're going to go through 4 ways to do this, the 4 building blocks of influence. And the first one we just talked about quite a bit is about finding the commonalities. The second one is about empowering people to do something with those commonalities. The third thing is to build the inspiration around that. And the fourth one is to show them how they can be fulfilled by their activities and action in doing that. So the first thing is to find the commonalities. If you look at your circle of friends, your closest colleagues at work, the people you do business with, you're going to see something you may not expect, and it is actually yourself. You will see your own personality in many of the people around you, because we're drawn to people who think like us and act like us. People who have the same interests as us, because it helps us create a sense of confidence in ourselves and our world. And research upon, reams of research have found that in almost every relationship, individuals are drawn to those who perceive as similar to themselves. Look at your own neighborhood, and you look at people in the community around you. They're the people who are just like you, who think like you. All of your friends will think like you. You bring yourself around that. And it's true when you look at business. People come to a company for lots of different reasons. They stay at a company because they find something that of comfort there, something that says, I feel like I belong. People don't stay at companies by accident. They have commonalities with their team or with some people within their team that they feel is a reason to be there. There's a great quote from a professor at the University of Kansas. You create a social world where you're comfortable, where you succeed, where you have people you can trust, and with whom you can cooperate and meet your goals. That's what communities are. That is what business is. Again, the goal of the leader here is to find a way to tap into what those commonalities are so that we can all work together to achieve our common goals. So how do you identify the commonalities within your people? You got to stop, you got to listen, you have to intimately understand. What I just showed before with Churchill was about that process. Stop what you're doing, listen, and understand. When I consult with CEOs and business leaders, the first thing I talk to them about doing is having them slow down what they do. They're always hard charging to try to drive forward, make some big statement, make a big move that's going to make a difference. But the first thing they have to do is listen and understand. They have to talk to their people. They have to understand how they think, how they work, what they care about, where their passions are, what they hate. All of those things we have reflected in a tool that we use called the organizational IQ. And it is around things like understanding the culture of your people and the leadership, the vision and structure and the way the organization is built. But for leaders who are already in a company, they have to be looking at things like the ethic of the people. What motivates them? What are their strengths? Where does their positivity come from? You have to look at the enemies, like what are the obstacles to what it is they want to do? What are the conflicts they run into? What are the opposing points of view that cause problems? You have to also recognize that there are tons of biases in a company. This is why I mentioned before, you've got sales trying to drive actual dollars in the door, but you got marketing who's spending tons of money. Well, they seem to have very different biases, but in fact, they do have the same common goal. They may not always see it at the same time, but they do have a common goal. You have to help them see that. So there's biases and beliefs and approach. How I approach my work is very different than how someone else approaches their work. It's okay that that happens. We have to understand why they do it differently and how those can come together. Ambitions are very different. You have to look at things like, where do people derive their pride? What is the point of pride? Where does fulfillment come from? What are their aspirations? And then what is the potential? What is my capacity as an employee? What is my capacity as a manager? What are the opportunities and achievements that I want to see happen? That has to happen through the organization as individuals, but also as teams and as a whole of the entire organization. So the second thing is empowerment. And for decades and even centuries, empowerment is something, the power to the people has been systematically pulled out of corporate America. And there's a reason for that. It's because corporate America is built on this idea of efficiency, reliability, and consistency. Those are all things that where people are the problem, right? People are the ones that are inconsistent. People are the ones who are not perfect. So business really inherently has shown a lack of trust in its people. And business is built to take imperfection out of the system, to limit the downside of people. And in the process, they're also sacrificing the contribution of those people. This is a really important statement. And I want this to be the main thing that you take away from this conversation. People will believe in you when they know you believe in them. If you empower people and they know that you have their trust and that they have your trust, they will act for you. They will work for you. They will work towards the goals. But if you don't show that you believe in them, they will never lift a finger to help or do anything other than the bare minimum of what they're expected to do. So people will believe in you when they know that you believe in them. Empowerment really is the most powerful tool of influence, because empowered people don't just follow, they invest their time, they contribute, they add value, they feel like they're part of the solution, they feel their contribution matters, they want to participate if you empower them. This is a JFK video that everybody's very familiar with, but I want you to look at it from the standpoint of empowerment. This whole statement is about empowering people. The whole goal behind it, the reason these words are so, have sort of come down through time to be some of the most powerful words ever spoken, is because what it did was it said, people can make a difference. You in this nation have done something, and we need to carry that forward. This is a statement of empowerment.
Only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
And when you listen to that from that context, you see a very different way of what empowerment is. That statement was about empowering people. Again, it was about saying that you are the ones who brought us here. You are the ones who are going to take us forward. That is empowerment. And it really, I mean, it's obviously clearly influential, but it actually drives people to act. So people at different points of view need something inspire. Oh, I'm sorry, I just jumped to the other one. I'm sorry. So the third thing is about inspiring people, right? And one of the issues that you have when you have a vision, when you lay a vision out as a leader or as anyone who has an idea, it's really hard for people to see where that idea is going to go. It's difficult to picture the end form of it because we all come at it from different points of view. We might look at that as a positive. We might look at that vision as, oh, this is going to be a pain in my ass because it's going to create more problems. Everybody has a different point of view. So, and the point of inspiration is to give them a stake in the ground that people can see and understand, that people can picture where they're going, where they're headed. And again, this is one of the most valuable aspects of leadership, and it's also one of the most overlooked. People with different points of view need something inspiring to align them. And inspiration is something we have to recognize is as emotional as it is logical. People have to feel it. You have to create a lens for people to see the vision. And you have to show them a very tangible vision of what that belief and that contribution can lead to, and help them see the path forward, to make it so visceral that they want to fight for it, not just understand it, but to want to fight for it. So I want to give an example of an inspirational piece that was put together for leadership of an architecture firm. This is an organization that was filled with absolute perfectionists, people who like, they just agonize over the slightest little detail. Everybody in this company who had come to work there over the years had the same trait, absolute perfectionists. They were masters. But a lot of people who worked there kind of felt like they were too focused on the execution aspect of it. They were kind of struggling to see the value in that perfectionism. So while their innovation was through their ideas and their skills and abilities were something they were extremely proud of. They were struggling to see the benefits of it, to see where it was all leading, what it was. So we used the example of Chrysler here, and Chrysler being the third of the major auto manufacturers, always the company that had to try harder and make things happen. They sought innovation not through design, but in perfecting details. That was the passion of the people at Chrysler. I want to show a quick video here again that brings up the passion that people felt about obsessing over the details and the pride that they felt.
Chrysler is a very, very scrappy, innovative company. It's always been the third largest, in the U.S. auto industry. And that's okay. It's always had to innovate its way to be noticed. You can create a product that reinvigorates, revitalizes the brand, and that's through engineering. Right now, we're designing the concept car, the SM1. It's a family vehicle that's fully electric and autonomous capable. Wow.
It's really different. Yeah. We're really trying to play with giving the car more stance, make it feel slender and more airstream.
Do you think the Horizon line will actually behave that way? You intend the line to be that crisp, or are you going to? It's going to be softened up. Counting on paint to do this, like the reflection, or are you actually going to make a crisp line?
Crisp line. I think the initial idea was to soften it up, not so soft that there's not a break, but soft enough that all of these radiuses kind of.
You mind if I put a piece of tape on it?
Yeah, go for it.
This is a little bit too fine. I think that could use a little more beef. This is nice. There's a way to somehow put a bit of a cup in there to kind of, because that's the only other way. You're not going to roll it. The interiors have become the battleground for car design. You design every square inch of that interior to control the message, make sure it's holistic, to make it beautiful, functional. One area that I keep staring at is the radius on, especially the rear door as it transitions. And I think now if you move that wheel back, can you let it breathe? It feels like it's forcing its way around the wheel. You can actually see the highlight being crashing with that. The front one is perfect. It's like, let's do that. Let's call it 40 mils. I think 40 mils is perfect. Yeah. I mean, you can go too far quick,
Oh, yeah.
It'll come alive. No, nice job. What can I say? Good stuff.
So the thing that you just saw there was people who were extraordinarily impassioned and proud about building a minivan, right? This is a minivan. Their level of belief in what they were doing, like just again, finessing even the slightest detail, every line, every curve, every, color change, the end of that, they were showing how they were going to move the wheelbase 44 millimeters, this far. And that's what they love to do. That in their mind was innovation. That was mastery. And so when we talk to this organization about elevating what it was that their people were doing through this lens, everybody saw their job in a different way. It was like, we're creating something and doing things that no one else is doing on the architecture side. Because of that level of detail, because of that level of perfectionism, they were able to build things in the real world that nobody else could see. Even the highfalutin architects who were building these crazy buildings were not able to do it in a way that it could actually be reflected in the real world well. That's what they did very well. And so there was a sense of pride that we helped create, that the leadership there helped create through this organization. That was really powerful. So click. That did work. Okay. So the fourth one is about fulfillment, right? People don't think they get fulfilled by their jobs. They feel like fulfillment is something that they often do through things like philanthropic work, right? Can't be fulfilled by my job every day of the week. Jobs are boring, they're monotonous. So they do try to find fulfillment by other means, always extracurricular activities, giving, supporting the community, which is great stuff. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that is a crutch. It is a cheat. It is avoiding what real fulfillment needs to be in work. We have to expand our view of what fulfillment is. And I'm going to give you a couple of things here that really define what fulfillment can be. So number one, fulfillment is accomplishment. Fulfillment is impact. Fulfillment is recognition of the work that I do. Fulfillment comes from discovering something new. Fulfillment comes from building new relationships. Fulfillment comes from belonging to a team and feeling like you're part of something. Fulfillment comes from helping other people. Every single one of these things can and absolutely should come from our work. And it's a lie if anyone says my job is boring. It's because the organization is not helping people see their accomplishments, helping people feel that they're making an impact, helping people recognize the effort and the results of that effort, helping them discover things and build relationships and feel a sense of belonging and helping other people either on their team or elsewhere. This is what fulfillment is. Any leader can drive fulfillment in the day-to-day work, even the most mundane task. You can do that with, but you got to think of it the right way. So those building blocks we've been talking about building influence are also the building blocks of influential messaging, like commonalities, empowerment, inspiration, fulfillment. Now, for it to be relevant to messaging, I'm going to add a fifth thing in here, which is in the center there, the idea of the problem and the challenge. So commonalities are something that we want to be able to build through this idea of showing that we as people, we as a company, we as employees have a bias. We approach things in a unique way. The second thing is to understand that you have to identify what a main problem is, because you can't be influential if there isn't a problem to influence. So we have to dramatize the problem, show an understanding of the problem. I'll give you some examples of this in a minute. Empowerment is about how our bias, how our point of view, how our company culture and organization, the way we think, the way we act, can be uniquely applied to solve that problem. And then inspiration, how can our teams be the ultimate solution and then ultimately show the impact? What is the fulfillment piece of it? How can we be, how is this impacting us? The example of Martin Luther King, he gave a voice to beliefs that are already there, right? But what he did was he found a commonality. He inspired people in the process. His words inspired, those words empowered people to go out and do something about it. Then he also gave them the tools to actually act in the world to be fulfilled by what accomplishments were created. The same with Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs took a bunch of creative rebels, which was their bias. The world is a creative place. It's not for gray boxes. Gave them a voice and a platform to succeed through technology, which empowered them. Gave them a vision, which inspired them, and gave them the tools to fulfill that vision. Those are where the words came from. Those are what drove the success of everything that Steve Jobs and Apple ever did in that case. So I'm going to give you a quick example, and we're going to move on to the panel discussion here, of how you can bring those pieces that we just talked about to the written message, how you put it to the written word. I'm going to use the example of AAA, which is a client that we have. And I'm going to do this from the standpoint of showing in the yellow the bias, in red the problem, in blue how we empowered people. Black is the inspiration, and green at the bottom there is all about the impact we're going to make. I'm going to read through this real quick, but I want you to see how all those pieces come together to be motivating and influential. So in America, the car is the center of our universe. We were born to drive. Growing up, it was the moment we waited our entire lives for, to escape where we were, to go any place we wanted to go, to roam the roadways and highways, to crisscross our country, to make a trip across town, or to pick up the kids. The car represents freedom in America, mobility, and above all, adventure. And because of this, we've come to rely on our cars like air or water. We expect them to start every time we turn the key, to get us through a lonely stretch of road, to make the family vacation trip something we'll never forget, or to get us to the airport on time. For over 100 years, Americans have entrusted their cars to a familiar name, AAA. It's the first thing people think about when things don't go as planned. Did you call AAA? I hope you have AAA. Those are all part of the setting up that problem aspect of it. The bias you just saw before, cars are freedom. Cars are our way out. Cars are something that is so important to us as people and also to us as a company. So then we get to the empowerment piece of it. So I hope you have AAA. AAA is as much a part of America as our roads, our highways, our roadside attractions. It's quite possibly the most recognized and reassuring icon you know, because no other organization is so ingrained in our culture. No other team feels as much responsibility for the safety and security of our members as the people at AAA. That's the empowerment part. You have that sense of responsibility and you act on it. And I'll skip through some of the things that are a little bit more straightforward to get down to the inspiration part. So membership at AAA means your car, your freedom, your mobility is protected by the most trusted assistance network ever built. You have special access to our benefits. It means you have member pricing. It means that in months ahead you'll see progressive new technology that'll change, and you'll know about your car forever. No other company, no other technology gives you the complete peace of mind on the road like you have when you carry one simple essential car. AAA members come with the power, our membership comes with the power of the people who are 100% behind our members, advising you, guiding you, anticipating your needs, and ensuring that you find and get to your destination no matter what time, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what road or country you're in. So whether you have your dream sports car, reliable pickup, or minivan, you are protected every way, every day for AAA. So the idea behind that is this kind of statement, which is an external statement, is an influential statement because it tells that story of the problem, the bias that you care about your freedom, the problem being you could be stuck somewhere, the empowerment that we give our people at this organization to the ones that feel that responsibility and care and want to do that work, and then that impact. People are out there doing what they want to do, and they feel completely at peace in it and with their car and the world around them. Okay. I have a couple other examples, but I want to make sure we get to the other piece of this. So the last component of it is that, we just talked about messaging, but again, it only works when you connect with the common beliefs of an audience. So I'm going to just finish up with this. Ask yourself these questions as a leader. Ask yourself these questions as somebody that's to write messaging or create messaging that influences people. Are you listening to your people? Are you aligning your people? And lastly, are you putting yourself in the right position, the right people to be influential? Creating these commonalities in an organization is not a piece of cake. It is a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I want to give you a couple of different things to think about here. You have to start by identifying areas of alignment, talk to the people across your organization, understand their beliefs, their passions, their obstacles. And that big one, their obstacles, is a critical component. You can't walk away from the things that interfere with them be able to do their job and feel good about what they do. Then you have to see how far and deep those beliefs exist within the organization. And then identify the people who are the strongest advocates for it. In any organization, there are going to be people who are naysayers, but there's a lot of people who already believe something. Then you have to realize that not everybody's going to buy in. You can't align everyone. Over time, you have to be able to build support through the people who are your strongest advocates, and then be prepared to make hard decisions around people who fight it. You can try to win them over, but you're not always going to win them over, which means then you have to optimize your team over time. Hire for personality traits, strengths and beliefs, build managers who build the teams who share what you're all working toward. And then you can build something of real value in that case. All of those go to the core of influence, which is you need to align the people. Then you can have the strong messaging. All the pieces about owning that bias, dramatizing the problem, empowering your people, inspiring them, showing them the thing it can do, and then showing the impact that their efforts have on the problem and what we uniquely as an organization are able to do. They can feel fulfilled, they can feel empowered, they can feel inspired, and ultimately they can and will feel a common bond with everyone around them. All right. So sorry for all the hiccups there. Somebody told me to use a mouse, which that did end up working. So thank you for that. So let's get on to the panel discussion, because everything we just talked about really defines the way that both Elizabeth and Jamie work within their organizations to drive that level of commonality, that level of influence, to bring people along that already have a common set of beliefs, or you help bring out those common set of beliefs within it. So I'm going to turn this over to Dave Townsend. I'm going to turn this off here. And Dave is going to start leading us through the panel discussion.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the thinking and appreciate you fighting through the joys of technology. Before we get into the panel discussion, just a couple of ground rules. If you have questions, please put them through the chat function on Zoom, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the panel discussion. I will also be asking both Elizabeth and Jamie questions individually, so that you know, the world of Zoom doesn't work exactly like the real world. So we'll do this and try to make it as clear as possible. So the idea here is we want to take these concepts and ideas that Chris just shared with you and really give you a couple of real world examples. So we brought Elizabeth and Jamie on board to do this panel discussion. They're leaders at two very different companies in two very different industries. And they've taken these ideas and these concepts and applied them in really different ways. So I'm going to let them expand a little bit on their background and their companies. But I also want to give both of you a lead in here to sort of get into the first topic, which is really, you know, what was it? What was the catalyst? What was the event or the inflection point in your business that gave you the opportunity to use influence and using cultural derived message to align your organization and get it moving in the right direction? So for this, I want to start with Elizabeth, and then we'll move on to Jamie, and then the next question, we'll swap it around.
Hi, thank you, Dave. Thanks everybody for being here today, and thanks for including me. I really appreciate it. This was a great presentation. Do you want me to start with a little background, Dave?
Yes.
My name's Elizabeth Mangan. I'm the CEO at Miller Valentine, and we are a construction company in Cincinnati and Dayton, and also Columbia and Charleston, South Carolina. We build in about, at this point, maybe 15, 16 states. So we also do real estate development, climate controlled self-storage, and luxury apartments. But we build for a multitude of different customers, from Procter & Gamble to multifamily developers. So that's a little bit about Miller Valentine. We're on track this year to do about $250 million in revenue. So we've been growing pretty significantly over the last few years, which will explain, will make sense when I talk to you about the inflection point that kind of drove this. So I was general counsel at Miller Valentine from 2008 to about 2018 when I took over as CEO. So in leading up to me taking over as CEO, we went offsite and did some pretty significant strategic planning. And what we learned about during the strategic planning process was that, I'll say, we had grown to be about a mile wide and an inch deep. We were in multiple businesses. And so as I brought the new leadership team in place, our inflection point was we were going to intentionally exit about 6 business lines and recommit to our core business as a general contractor. So as you can imagine, we were going from 750 employees to 250 employees. We sold an affordable housing development company. We sold a property management company. We sold 6,000 apartment units. We sold an asset management team. We exited multiple business lines to recommit to our core as a contractor. The challenge was we've been in business for 57 years now, right? And you had folks, as Chris mentioned earlier, who had joined the company. I just had a gentleman retired, been here for 42 years, right? So you've had folks that have been here through multiple generations of leadership and ownership, and also through sort of multiple iterations of the company. So the good news was, because we were recommitting to our core, I didn't have to create why we were here or what the vision was. It actually lived in everybody. Everybody already knew why they got up every morning, right? Not only to build things and change a customer's life, but they knew why they did it at Miller Valentine. So what I had to do with new leadership is come in and try to give context or maybe voice to why everybody was already getting up every morning. And I'm making that sound like it was really simple. It's not. It's still in process. So the challenge, sort of part of Chris's presentation, as a construction company, I'm surrounded by some very, very intelligent, degreed engineers, sort of everywhere, right? And I'm more of a, how do I say it? Maybe a little up here, right? 50,000 foot view. And I have folks that love the detail. So we did a lot of listening. We had a lot of group sessions to talk about, why do you get up every morning? What is it about your job that fulfills you and inspires you every day? And I tried to explain to folks that we're not a nonprofit. You're right. You don't have to be a nonprofit to have purpose. We all have purpose. There's a reason we continue to do this day in and day out, and just helping them sort of say it out loud and understand that a business developer's purpose might be the same, but their path to the fulfillment might be different. So how do we work together as teams? Good example is consistently meeting customer expectations. You'll hear me say that all the time in front of different groups. We are trying to consistently meet a customer expectation. What do they say? You don't have to delight them, but you better never disappoint them, right? So a business developer, in meeting a customer expectation, she might want to please the customer. She wants to provide information quickly, right? And she wants to be very responsive. The engineer in the background working on the estimate wants to present perfect estimate, right? So they have a different way of meeting a customer expectation or pleasing the customer. I want to consistently meet customer expectations because I have some really exciting growth goals. So we might have different fulfillment, right? But we're all trying to do the same thing. And we're just trying to learn, how do the teams work together to do exactly what the goal is, knowing they have a different path or a different reason for doing it. So it's been a process. I continue to try to listen, find the common interest, and put context or maybe not words to it, but actions to it, right? Let everyone try to model the way for where we're trying to go. Does that help, Dave?
Absolutely. Spot on. Thank you very much for that, Elizabeth. Jamie, you're up.
Thank you, Dave. And thank you for inviting us to speak today. My name is Jamie Horn. I'm the Director of Marketing for Johnson Investment Counsel. Johnson Investment Counsel, we manage over $15 billion. We're a fee-only wealth management firm, and we serve individuals, families, retirement plans, foundations, and endowments across 4 of our divisions. We represent clients in 49 states, and we've been in business for over 55 years. So I've been part of the Johnson family for over 10 years, and we've actually worked with Intrinsic for 15 years. So we were working with Intrinsic before I joined the firm. So when you think about inflection points, our firm, our leadership, we have a great leadership team in place and management that has really always kept the heart of the firm in mind and what we were built upon. So, through that, we still would always have strategic plans and strategic goals. So in 2018, we embarked on a 10-year strategic plan. So that's normally they're 3 years, but so this was a 10-year strategic plan that was broken up into different segments, but we all knew what our drive was by 2017. And so, this really set the stage for purposeful growth. And it was always about helping people. It's not, we want to grow the firm to have this many billion under management. It's just always, and our president says it today, we want to help more people. And that's what this is about. So, as the Director of Marketing, I knew, that was going to take a lot of work over the span of 10 years. And, at the very beginning, why don't we make sure that everybody is operating under the same foundation of what the company really stands for. And, similar to, all the different building blocks that Chris was talking about, and, what Elizabeth said of, knowing what's in the core of, the employees and kind of bringing that to life. So part of what makes Johnson, who we are, it's really the hiring process, in a sense of making sure those that get through the door, they match the mold of who we are. And so the heart of our company is really the core of our employees. And, in order to bring that to life and really capture that foundation and more formalize it, it would be really beneficial, I thought, to go through a branding exercise. And so, formalizing this process really gave us the messaging and inspiration behind what ultimately aligns us as a firm, and what it is. And it mirrors, what Chris was saying is we align behind the same passions and the common belief that we're going to do right by people and give them peace of mind. So it created a great opportunity to align everybody and bring everybody together in that process.
Hey, Jamie, really quick, just to add to that, you've talked before about the importance of getting everyone involved in that process, that buy-in. Talk about that a little bit.
So, that is probably one of the most strategic things, in a sense, in the beginning of that whole process, because, we really weren't facing any issues as a firm as we went into this, as we started down this route. But, in my mind, you need to be proactive about it. And, you shouldn't wait to align everybody when you start to see all those cracks. And a benefit of adding that extra layer of foundation is just so you don't start having cracks in that culture. And so part of bringing everybody together in that was to keep that culture alive. So, at the beginning of this process, with the rebranding exercise, it was very intentional to include a lot of people across the firm. So, we put together a team that was the core decision-making team that ultimately everything, kind of went back to that. But when we started talking about, and we went through this, Intrinsic led us through this exercise, when we really started thinking about what are the key differentiators over departments, I wanted to get every department in the room with Intrinsic, because so Intrinsic would bring 4 people from their firm to the company. I'd pull in 5 to 7 people from each department, and their voices were heard. So ultimately, at the end of this, when we have this, beautiful new messaging, it all goes back to the core of who we are, and everybody heard their voice in it because they were part of that process going through it. And so in order to get that buy-in, people need to feel truly vested in the process, and that's involving them along the way.
Yep, well said. And then Elizabeth, I have a follow-up for you as well, which is, you talked about employees that have been there for 40 years. You had old school employees that were part of a different version of what that company was, and new employees who were part of a new future of that. How did you make that fit together in some way?
You're assuming I made that fit together in a certain way, Chris, but no.
How are you in the process of putting it together?
We are in the process of doing that. And I think, and it's really about recognizing different strengths and weaknesses and perspectives, right? But the passion can still be aligned, right? What gets me out of bed every morning doesn't have to be what gets someone else out of bed every morning, as long as we're contributing in a way to the overall vision. And that's what we've tried to do. And I'll tell you, I have been incredibly surprised by, and I hope this comes out the right way, some of our folks that have been here 40 years and they've been here through different layers of leadership, and honestly have never reported to a woman, and the open-mindedness and the excitement about where we're going and how we're going to get there continues to astound me all the time. That will bring tears to my eyes, but I think it's because they were heard. As Jamie pointed out, we brought some of those folks to the table when we started to talk about, okay, so we've been through this sort of transformation. We've recommitted to our core. We're investing in this construction company. How do you capture hearts and minds? How do we hear what the hearts and minds are saying? And I remember one of the gentlemen had been here for 42 years, and we're talking about what defines us, what drives people. And he said to me, if I can't paint it on the side of the truck, it's not who we are. And I loved that perspective. And he's absolutely right. Right. And so hearing that from him, but knowing that he was excited about defining that was huge. So honestly, Chris, what I do, and I think you've seen me do it, I put them all in the room. you know, all together. So you've got someone who's been there for 42 years that works in the field, and you've got a brand new hotshot accountant that maybe is 30 years old. You have different generations, different aspects of the business, as Jamie was talking about. So you hear from everybody, because at the end of the day, people are getting up because they love the community they work in. They're coming in here every day because they feel aligned, they feel part of a community, and they believe in what we're trying to do for the customer, regardless of how they've been here or where else they've been.
Absolutely. And when you push the company down a different road in some way, as you've made some key decisions here that not everybody agrees with at all times, you still didn't try to run forward so fast and say, hey, everybody catch up. It was quite the opposite. You started in the trenches. You didn't run, you walked very slowly. You got your followers along the way. You started to build that following, as opposed to, like I said, many new CEOs come into a role and it's like, I got to make big changes, and they're making changes in their own mind. You didn't do that at all. You did the complete opposite of that.
And I think it's important to note that, you know, and maybe it's different in different industries, but when you have a lot of engineers that are working with you, they need proof, right? You kind of earn credibility. You gain credibility over time when they see, oh, that math worked, right? Or this problem was solved in this way, and this was the outcome. And so I had to intentionally be slow and kind of earn that. And you see, as you were talking about, you start identifying the folks who, you know, the sort of real believers and the sort of advocates or ambassadors, and you start identifying them. And a lot of the folks I've been able to identify is because they've seen it play out, right? They had to watch it. They had to, it's a math proof for them. And they had to see that happen.
Absolutely. And Jamie, your company went through, has been working very hard to add a lot more diversity to the people who are there, which again is diversity of opinions, as well as all kinds of other diversity. And that was a pretty big shift. So talk about how that kept alignment through that kind of shift there.
I think the key to everything is really, it's been communication and transparency. You know, if you want to involve people, you know, and to take the firm forward, you have to be built on those core beliefs. And again, the people that work here already have that in their heart. So it's bringing them along with that. It is listening to everybody. It is taking into account what they think, why they think Johnson stands apart, why they think, you know, their department and what they add to it makes Johnson a good home for clients. So it's bringing in all those elements, giving them a voice, giving each department, each different business line that voice to be able to make a difference and really see themselves in that end product and that end result.
Very good. Thank you.
Guys, this leads very well into the next topic. So, you know, as you're doing the listening and you're involving people and you're getting that buy-in and on board, you know, one of the next steps in the process is starting to communicate, starting to disseminate your messaging. And so what are the tools you're using to disseminate that message? How are you finding those commonalities as you're going through listening, and how are you using those to talk to those people with different backgrounds and different points of view? Jamie, you can start since Elizabeth started on the first topic.
Okay. I feel like I'm saying the same thing in a sense, but I just feel like culture is such a huge part of this. And you have to have this built into your culture to really be able to bring it forward. And, you know, we've got all the different tools of aligning people behind it and disseminating you, whether you go into the tactics of, you know, the new website or new sign on the building and things like that. But those are just the physical aspects of, you know, the brand and how we communicated it. But it's really, you know, throughout the entire year that we did this rebranding project, I was in front of the company probably 3 or 4 times, letting people know where we are in the process, putting up all the names that have been involved in all these meetings so that everybody in the firm knew, oh, wow, it's not just a group of 7 people making the decisions about what we stand for as a company. It was over 35 people that were involved in this. And so it's really, you know, pulling those all together, and it just creates this forward momentum for the firm that people, you know, see themselves in it. But a big part of that struggle is making sure, again, in the very beginning, that you have the culture where employees feel heard. And I feel very lucky to work somewhere that was built into the culture 55 years ago, and the people that have worked here have continued to uphold that. And, you know, with our president, Jason Jackman, who, you know, became president in 2013, it's only continued to grow. And the level of communication that comes from our leadership is amazing. And it's, you know, kind of a segue, but it's, you know, during COVID, our culture has gotten even stronger. And it's, I think, because we all viewed ourselves as, wow, we all have to survive, and how are we going to do this? And we're all going to lean on each other, because that was the culture in our firm. It was always a heart to serve, but that wasn't just a heart to serve our clients. That was a heart to serve each other. And so, like, you know, going back to that communication of just keeping everybody on the same, you know, on the same page, you know, every week now ends with an email from our president that says, this is what's going on in the business this week. Here's some, you know, rock star employees this past week and the things we're accomplishing. And I've heard multiple people say it just, we're sent off with a big warm hug, you know, and I'm sure Jason would love me describing it that way, but, you know, I'm the marketing person, so I get to add the heart, you know, sometimes to it. But, you know, that, you know, I'm a marketing person, you know, at an investment firm, and I don't know finance. I don't know, you know, the best, you know, stocks to have in a portfolio, but, you know, I work somewhere that every day I see the people that we have that serve our clients, and I can really get behind the passion for what we do for people, because everybody here just loves the firm and ultimately loves the people. So sorry, I could go on a million tangents about this firm, but
Perfect.
this is a commercial.
That's perfect. Thanks, Jamie.
So to answer your question, Dave, how do you kind of keep it going? How do you know, disseminate it? And I think we do it similarly. So with any new initiative or different initiative, I make sure that any leader that's sending out an email, like, tie it back to why, right? Let's remind people. So I talked about consistently meeting a customer expectation. So what you'll hear us say sometimes is building certainty, right? That's what we're doing. We're building certainty for a customer or, you know, internally. And so tie it back to the why. Why are we doing this initiative, right? And every time anyone addresses the company or a group, we start with what I'll call sort of a vision or a mission moment, and they're not delivered by me. And we try to make it a very diverse group of people. So whether you're in property management or development or construction or in the field or in accounting or in HR, you'll get up and address the company, and you'll give an example of what you've seen, right? You know, I kind of caught you doing something good, so to speak, like how you've seen that being modeled in your group or from someone else from another group, just to keep the hearts and minds captured with why we're doing this and where we're going. So it's just, I think, about consistent communication, making sure that you're always messaging in a way that people understand why you're doing something and how it ties to the overall vision and how they can have an impact. So we're not perfect. We try very hard to make sure that the messaging is consistent and people understand and can follow. And it always contributes to the overall vision.
Yeah, that actually is a great statement that builds on to a question that somebody asked, which is, how do you keep the passion and commitment alive across the organization over time, right? And you said it there exactly, which is the things that we do all have to ladder up to what that main vision that we all share is. Like, we have to be able to show, talked about fulfillment and the impact that we're having. We have to be able to show that the effort we're putting forward is leading to something. And small steps are every bit as powerful as big steps. That is something that, you know, people are like, well, that's not important enough to talk about. That is damn wrong. It is every bit important enough to talk about, because every great movement comes from small steps that go forward. And the stuff that you just talked about there, about always laddering up every effort, every success, that it's not just we you know, booked more business this month or this quarter. It is, what did we do within that business, and how was that leading us to our ultimate goal, which is still a ways out, right? I mean, your vision is not right in front of you, it's a ways out. So you have to be able to show all the stepping stones along the way. And that's how you keep that passion and commitment alive, because you have to see the progress. You have to share and celebrate the progress. People have to feel fulfilled by that.
Absolutely. You have to make sure that you're also connecting that back to that context, that bigger vision, and that, you know, the cultural pillars and the components that you're bringing together. So far in this conversation, we've been talking a lot about internal communication and aligning the team. And, we firmly believe in our approach that if you get the inside right, the outside becomes easier, not necessarily easy. So how do you strike a balance between that, driving your business through external communication while still working on that internal culture piece and the care and feeding of the folks inside that are really going to impact that external message? Who wants to jump into that one first?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, I can go. Well, I feel like, internal and external communication, it's kind of, one and the same, because of the culture for us that we've built, our external communication is reinforced by our internal communication with our employees. So that's why this alignment on a common mission is so important, because when you think about it, the biggest driver of external communication is your employees. So that's where a strong culture is so important, because ultimately your employees are the vessels that carry the brand forward. I mean, you have your brand carried forward through traditional tactics of, your website, social media, advertising, things like that. But nobody wants to do business with a firm that treats their employees poorly. So making sure we take care of our home base ultimately gives us the confidence to know that our employees are getting, or that our clients are getting the utmost care, and that they can see that that client experience is instilled in the firm. So, we balance, with that external communication, we have the steady drumbeat of, having our blog that we send out, and those different, tactics of keeping in front of them. During COVID, we're in COVID, but in the very beginning, we were sending out 2 emails a week. We have a content strategy team that is built up with marketing, but also our portfolio managers that are hearing the concerns of clients every day. And it's how do we, let's send out a message that speaks to the hearts of what are the real concerns that our clients are having today. And so that ultimately, speaks to some of the concerns for our employees as well. And employees, when they know, the firm itself is taking care of the clients and setting that foundation of care, it makes their job easier, because they're not fighting fires all day with a million client questions that we can address with an email that goes out or some kind of piece of communication. So.
Great. Elizabeth?
Jamie said that, well, what really matters is that, the first thing you have to do is capture the hearts and minds internally, right? And make sure the messaging is clear, folks are aligned with it, they understand it. And that's when the external messaging, it's almost a follow-on, and maybe that's the wrong phrase for it, but I think that's right. I think getting clarity internally, and you have to grip the hearts and minds and make sure the passions are aligned, they understand their impact and their contribution. Your external messaging can get done for you. Now, we are active on social media, and we are active with blogs and that kind of thing. And again, making sure that, marketing is working to make sure that all that external messaging is truly aligned, and people feel proud of what we're putting out there and understand why we're putting certain things out there, because again, they come back to the vision, right? And the contribution that group is making. I think, Dave, the one challenge you talked about, how do you balance sort of maybe a leader's drive to grow the business, or maybe what we call the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? The big out there beacon that a leader has in their heart and mind, with the care and feeding of the associates, particularly in the middle of a kind of transformation like we've been through. And it is tough to manage that, because when you better be listening to the hearts and minds when you put the flag on the hill, right? And folks are like, whoa, is she out of her mind? Right? To make sure that they're understanding why and the how, right? So how can they still have a contribution? So what gets me up every morning might be very different than what gets one of my project managers up every morning. And that's okay, as long as what gets them up every morning is contributing, right? We can still have aligned passions and still want to go there, but it's with, you said care and feeding, and I think it's with care and an open mind and open ears to kind of balance the drive of the business with the come along, you know what I mean? We're continuing to evolve. There's more change ahead, good, positive growth change, but it's, I would say it's still a challenge. I don't think we've concluded that. And hopefully it's always a challenge, because that means we're always evolving, right?
Right.
You've got new faces and new approaches. So it's proven to be a fine dance.
it's an ongoing process,
Yes.
and it's an evolving process as well, because what was worked today or what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. And you have to really be able to be dynamic in that, because it's going to shift. I mean, sometimes you got to prioritize certain things on the business side that can sacrifice certain things that your employees are doing. And you might say, well, that's, that's business, right? But if you approach it the right way and they see this might be a short-term shift that leads to a long-term benefit, that changes the whole dynamic. But if you don't communicate that, they'll never feel it and never see it. We have a really good question for you two in particular, because Jamie, you've already been through this, and Elizabeth, you're about to go through this. But it was about if the rebranding and repositioning involved change to the visual identity. Can you talk about how you communicated and connected the visual manifestation of the identity to the importance of consistency of visual, but also to the idea of who we are as a company? So how much was the visual aspects of it critical to both? How do you connect it to the culture as well as the meaning of what you do? And Jamie, let you start with that, because you've been through this and you can speak about it quite eloquently.
I don't know about that, but so when I first brought this to our leadership team in 2018, the idea of changing your logo or, visual or anything like that was dollar signs at a wealth management firm. And so I really approached it, and I truly believed it, that, look, we're not going into this branding exercise to change our logo. We're going in this exercise to make sure that we look like the firm, like the firm that we did, so when we started this, oh my gosh, I'm going to speak. Trying to think, when we started this strategic plan 3 years ago, we were managing, I think, $10 billion. And, I said, we need to make sure we even look like a $10 billion firm, let alone a $25 billion firm. So how do we make sure that we're positioned to look like we do now, but look like we want to when we get to the end of this 10-year plan, and show that we have a right to be at the same table as these other firms that could be larger than us? So I really had to say, I need the 80-20. I need you to trust me 80% and I'll get you the other 20. So when we started the process and brought everybody together, the people that were in that core decision-making team were people, vital. Every single person was vital to the project, but I also included a couple people that I thought could, if they didn't like it, I was going to know. And so I needed to know that they were in it from day one. And that changed that was transformative to do, and really, changed the way these people viewed marketing as well, I feel like, because they were along the entire process. So as we went into it, the one thing that became very apparent, and I think Chris may have said it, is that, okay, no matter what, if anything changes in this whole process, at minimum, it's your logo. Because it's like it really didn't communicate the sophistication and more of that holistic approach to our clients. So, now, when I presented the logo to the firm, you guys can't see it in front of you, but at the very center of it, at the center of our logo, it's circular. There are four, I envision 4 arms crossing that are going in a square. And each 4 of those different lines represent one of our divisions. And what I see at the center is that our clients, our client is in the very center of that. And we are surrounding our clients with all of our different divisions and services to truly bring them a peace of mind of the experience. That's what we see as Johnson and who we are. So, I don't think you go into a rebranding exercise to say we are definitely changing our logo, because you're going to get people to balk at that. But if you say we are only going to change if this exercise reveals the need to, because why else go through it if you're not open to change? So, and it took us about, 8-9 months, and it was not, even when we got to the end, it was like, oh, so we still have to change our logo. And it was like, when you redo all of your messaging and everything, you realize this is your front door. Your visual identity is your front door, and you have to match the engine of the car and the exterior together. Otherwise, nobody's even going to want to sit in the car. So that was a big part of the process.
Well said.
Well said. Yep.
And I think Elizabeth, since you're, in the middle, or actually we're getting to the end stages of this, but the value and importance of the visual aspects on the culture, what it means to the people there. how you want that to have meaning, not just today, but over time. And part of what this question was about, being consistent with that and the value of being consistent with that. So talk a little bit about your expectations of tying that sort of visual aspect to the culture and the drive forward.
At this point, I'm expecting to hire Jamie and hoping she'll come help me. She's been there and done that. It is no easy task. So when we started, we went through the rebranding process, which, by the way, was a phenomenal process just of discovery, right? For everyone to sort of be able to articulate, their passions and who we are and that kind of thing. But we got to the logo, and Chris warned me. He said, boy, this is tough. And I thought, this will be fine, right? It's a figure. And Chris said, no, these are going to look like foreign objects, and you're going to have a lot of, and I thought, okay, wow. It's tough. It's like Jamie said, people get to the end, they're like, what do you mean we have to modify the orange box, right? Something we've lived with and loved for forever. But Jamie, you said this very well. We needed something to kind of show us, or maybe better depict who we thought we were from a level of a sophistication level or a process level. So you've heard me say, consistently meet customers' expectations. Well, to do that, you've got to have some pretty standard processes. You're trying to convince people, hey, invest $20 million here. We'll build your building, right? That's a huge investment, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And you're trying to say, we'll build certainty. We're reliable. We're predictable. Look at the process we follow. We needed something in the logo to kind of connote that in a way, or depict for people that that's what this is. And it's a more of a forward-looking logo. How do you do all that with a figure, right? How do you, all those things I just said, how do you get that into a figure? And with opinions from everyone. And you have to have opinions from everyone. Again, it's about everyone has to believe, yep, that's what we look like. That identifies us, right? And I want that to be out there to the world. So I said earlier, one of the gentlemen said, if I can't paint it on a truck, it's not who we are. And he's absolutely right. And then someone else needs to be able to say, if I can't get an investor to want to call and make an investment with us based on this, right, then it's not right. So Chris, I'm not sure I'm answering your question other than to say, we followed a similar process that Jamie has laid out. We don't have success yet because we've not unveiled the refresh or the new logo to anyone. We intend to do that this summer. So, but to try to get everyone's heads around, does this really sort of depict who we are? And is this what we want to show the world? Was interesting. And it's not for the faint of heart. I think it's very important. I think, again, when you capture the heart and mind internally, and then folks are communicating for you externally, they have clarity and they have alignment, the logo's the icing on that, right? It says, yep, that's right. That's who we are.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up there, which is really critical, is that everything like that, the visual aspects, logos and all that, both of you use those as culture building elements, right? It was a rallying point for people to feel the pride they've always felt, the belief they've always felt, but in a way that they could see it and touch it. I mean, these are things that we, in many of these cases, reveal because there's a very emotional, moment when you see everything come to life in a way for everyone. And that's how it has to be. But if you just went out and developed all these assets and developed your message and all that kind of stuff off in a corner somewhere and said, okay, here it is, go run with it, and, feel good about it, would never, ever, ever happen, which is why brand and culture are actually one and the same. They have to be. I want to bring up, I know we're at the very end here, but I want to bring up something just about what we just talked about with both Jamie and Elizabeth, which is what they've said seems like it's like they're able to come to it fairly easily. Like you talk about it so eloquently, you're able to discuss the details and methods and everything behind it. But very, very few leaders and companies possess that mindset. Most of them are about going after, gaining the next dollar, doing everything they can to build the next quarter. They don't think about the things that actually build the next year and the next 10 years. Both of you have shown extreme sense of knowledge and belief that what you do matters, not today only, but also long term. And that when you bring people along, when they're part of whether it's a branding project or part of the influence messaging you're trying to do, part of the vision you're trying to build. Those things matter to them because you've taken the time to understand them and drive that forward. And it sounds easy, as you said, Elizabeth. It is not by any stretch, but it's a mindset, and both of you really have it. You're very strong in it. You believe in it. You drive it, and it shows in the success of your organizations. And that's a really impressive achievement.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Since we're getting close to the end here, we've had a couple of questions that I think we've answered through the process of the panel. Are there any additional questions that anybody wants to put out there as we're wrapping up? I want to thank Elizabeth and Jamie for the great insight. I also want to thank you for being great partners. We're super proud of the work that we were doing together with you guys and continue to do with you guys. And it is about having the common threads and the common beliefs that we share together that has helped us build tools that hopefully continue to help you guys grow your businesses. Also want to thank the AMA for inviting us and letting us be part of this process. And we'll be sending some things out. So if anybody has any additional questions or follow-ups, they can reach out to me and we'll take it from there. I'll turn it back over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It was really interesting, and I love the questions we got. So as Dave said, we'll be sending out some follow-up information. And then if anyone wants additional information or has additional questions, just reach out and we'll get that for you. But thank you again for attending today.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.